If the word mates drifts through a dream some way, you know at once, instantly, almost emotionally dead, you are standing on the vast sunstruck shore of Australia. Because this is a place where even confrontation can carry a strange warmth, where people have been known to stare down an enemy and still call them mad. On the battlefield, on the footy ground, in the dust and the noise of the ordinary life, the Australian temperament has always moved to its own rhythm, no doubt at all. But spirits like this are never born overnight. To understand them, you have to peel back the layers of history, shake the red dust from old stories, and dive beneath the surface of the national myth itself. So come, let us wander for a moment into those forgotten corridors of past and see what shape this curious, defiant spirit Australians still carry today. There are moments in history when the world seems to shift all at once, quietly some places, violently in other. The 18th century was one of those moments. The machinery and the smoke of the Industrial Revolution were beginning to all the rhythm human life across the globe, while the other side of the world, the American Revolution, had already fractured on the empire and created something entirely new. A nation determined to make decisions for itself. One of those decisions was blunt and uncompromising. Britain could send no more convicts there. So, the British Empire began searching for another distant outpost, another colony at the edge of the known world. Two possibilities emerged from the maps and imagination of the age. One, Das Voltas in Africa. The other, Botany Bay, an unfamiliar and almost mysterious landmass at the far end of the earth, visited only recently by the Captain James Cook. In the end, the decision tilted towards the unknown southern continent. Stories had circulated of gold and copper in parts of Africa, but little and real evidence could support them. Cook's journal, however, painted a different picture entirely. Vivid, abundant, and irresistible. And if you are not familiar with this voyage, listen closely. During his expedition, Cook carried back more than 3,000 botanical and natural specimens from this land, nearly 1,600 of which were believed to be entirely unknown to science journal. His writings spoke of immense forest and towering trees, timber vast enough to build ships, settlements, perhaps even an empire itself. That was exactly what Britain needed. And then there was another thought, practical, ruthless, yet strange visionary. The convicts of Britain, the unwanted and discarded, could be sent there to roam, labor, survive, and perhaps build something new beneath the alien sky. Because once you arrived here, returning home was almost unimaginable. Distance itself becomes a part of the punishment, and so the final seal was placed upon the decision at the cost of £20,900 on 13th May 1787. A fleet of 11 ships, Borrowdale, Fishburne, Golden Grove, Alexander, Salot, Friendship, Lady Pennin, Prince of Wales, Scarborough, the Brig Supply, and the Sirius departed carrying 1,487 souls towards a destiny no one fully understood. Together they sailed, not merely across ocean, but across latitudes, climates, the very boundaries of the known world, crossing Tropic of Cancer, the Equator, the Tropic of Capricorn, endless waters and impossible distance. Then after 252 days at sea, under the leadership of the Arthur Phillip, the fleet finally arrived in January 1788 upon the shores of the vast continent, where they arrived. The chief surgeon, John White, noted in his journal that to see all the ships safe in their destined port without ever having by any accident been 1 hour separated, and all the people in the good state of health as could be expected or hoped for after so long voyage, was a sight truly pleasing and at which every heart must rejoice. These words carrying gratitude, but beneath them there is something else too. The uneasy awareness that history had just stepped ashore because those ships carried more than life and supplies. They carried ambition, exile, fear, empire, survival, and unknowingly they carried the beginning of the complicated resistance story of Australia itself. And on this side of the world, the people who had lived upon this ancient land for tens of thousands of years looked towards the strange sails appearing on the horizon. And when the Europeans were first seen, the words carried across the shoreline were said to be Wara Wara Wai. From the first greeting of Wara Wara Wai to India Mara, it took more than a century for those two communities to truly accept one another. Through ups and downs, through painful chapters, they built something together. Progress, a nation rising from an untamed frontier. One story after another folded, from New Holland to the land down under, from Terra Australis to finally Australia. And what a story it became. A strange, difficult beginning, yes. Help arriving only after long intervals. But the tale kept being written, and perhaps what makes the transformation remarkable is this: a nation did not inherit its identity fully formed elsewhere. It carved much of its from this land itself. The beginning was anything but easy, sometimes struggling against the isolation, harsh climate, and the tyranny of the distance. Supplies arrived slowly, help even slower, yet somewhere at the far edge of the known world, this young colony continued writing its own story, often out of the hardship more than certainty. Time moved forward. New lives took shapes, and by around 1830, the colonial Australia had already become a society intensely aware of the class and social position, perhaps as conscious of hierarchy as any society in the world at that time. Emancipationists, free settlers, officers, laborers, and the first generation born on Australian soil, the currency lads and currency lasses, all occupied their own carefully observed places within the fragile social order. It was the beginning of something larger than the penal colony. A new era was quietly taking form where the people born beneath this southern sky were beginning to see themselves not simply as transported Britons but as something distinct shaped by the continent itself, and in slow awakening the foundation of the modern Australia were already being laid. As the colony slowly found its footing, certain figures began leaving marks upon its future that would echo far beyond these distant shores. Lachlan Macquarie, with his sweeping vision, helped shape what had once been little more than a penal outpost into the developing society. And later, Alexander Mackenzie introduced the mark system, a remarkably progressive idea for its time, where rehabilitation matters more than the endless punishment. And this concept that would eventually influence prison reform around the world. Little by little, new ideas kept arriving, and even more importantly, they were being tested upon this raw and distant continent. With every experiment, every hardship, and every adaptation, Australia was beginning to form a chapter entirely of its own. At the same time, the colony was quietly shifting from small farming to timber export. Whale oil became valuable, hides, wools, and sheep exports all began. And then came another dramatic turn in the story. Curiously enough, once again, America would play an unexpected role in Australia's destiny. This year was 1848, and the California gold rush had electrified the world. Among those drawn there were Edward Hargreaves, who traveled to California helping to find fortune, but returned without success. Yet sometimes history rewarded observation more than luck, and in 1851, near Bathurst, he became linked to the discovery of gold that would ignite Australia's own gold rush era. After that, everything changed, and by the dawn of 21st century, the name Australia was enough. Why? System, discipline, and hard work. And nature's support, that was the bonus. Yes, even the moment gathered peace elsewhere, there was still a vast western portion of the land that remained in many ways less touched by the attention and imagination. West of the invisible mark of 129 degree east, The land opened into the something immense and almost unsettling in its own scale. This was Western Australia, defined on paper in 1829 with a simple geometric certainty, a straight longitude, the cutting through country and imagination alike, separating it from the rest of the continent and stretching towards the vast silence of the Indian Ocean. For a long time, this vast land was spoken of in shifting language, Westralia, words that sounded provisional as though even language was still testing how to hold it properly. A place not fully settled in the national imagination, still formed in the background of country focused elsewhere. Over time, Western Australia gathered its own identity, shaped by the climate, isolation, and resilience. It became known in different ways: the wildflower states, for the sunshine state, for its white light-filled skies. At the time, even the Golden State, echoing its mineral wealth and promise, and affectionately Sandcropper Land, a name born from the soil itself, humble and uniquely local. One side, tropical weather, the other, Mediterranean climate, separate across 2.5 million square kilometers, home to around 3 million people, and 90% of them live in the southern west corner. And of that 90%, 80% live in just one city, Perth. How Perth it came to be? That's a Reaper story. In 1826, Captain James Stirling was sent to pick up his men from the Timor Sea. To dodge the seasonal rain, Stirling chose the western coast, a 4,300 kilometers detour. In 1827, he saw the Swan River region, fell in love, spent 2 weeks there, then wrote back to England, "Let's build a colony here." Initially, he wanted to call it Hesperia. Definitely, the idea became a reality and the colony got built, but it took the name of Perth. And what a story Perth wrote. Day by day, it grew. Someone once told me Perth turned from a ghost town into a host city. Let that sink in. A small but glorious past to a vibrant present and a future so beautifully you can almost sketch it. Built on the banks of the Swan River, sometimes called the Swan River Colony. The local Noongar people called it Burlo Land. In 1962, when American astronaut John Glenn flew over the Friendship 7, the people of Perth left every lights on. Street lights, house lights, everything. A message to the stars. That's when it earned the name City of Light. Between the Darling Scrape and the vast Indian Ocean, Perth's story is unlike any other. It's the FIFO capital of the world. But more than that, Perth is unique fusion of the outback spirit and modern metro life. You can feel the energy of the city and the soul of the bush. Surfing to mining, stargazing to self-talk, and Perth has one of Australia's most diverse multicultural communities. Over 200 nationalities call it home. The City of Lights is not only one of the most isolated cities in the world, but it also has the highest concentration of self-made millionaires per capita anywhere. How? Behind that, there is hard work. When I say that, I don't just mean mining, I mean Spartan spirit. Before every dawn barks, before the bird sings, our tradies already hit the highway. By 4 a.m., our tradies have turned the roads into rivers of the headlights. Keep in mind that we are adventurous, just like the Vikings of old. That spirit runs through our veins. Great rewards performance, that's our mantra. Some places talk about social life. Here we have a work-life balance that actually works. They call this place Dulles While. Come Friday afternoon, the city shakes off its sleeps and the silence of the night bursts into rhythm. And that's why we wear our nicknames with the pride. We are the Sandcroppers, lost in our own happy world, without a care for the rest of it. Ask someone what Perth people are like, and you will probably get a practical answer. We are friendly, but not always friends, helpful, but also the masters of our own world. We are definitely goal-oriented and result-driven. Check the history and you will get answer. Whether it's the American Cup, remember? 132 years of American dominance broken by Australia too. That boat was trained right here on the shore of WA. Courage, adventure, invention. We have never stepped back. Invention, I mean that word. From spray-on skin technology to Wi-Fi to Canva, a creative world that traces its root back to WA soil. And if you still think WA means wait a while, wake up, it's no longer that. Now you have to say it, wonder a while. Western Australia has grown into a confident creative force. The Western Australia Symphony Orchestra, Black Swan State Theatre Company, WAPA, the Perth Festival draws the world. Heath Ledge carries WA spirit to Hollywood. Tim Winton turned out coast into a literature. Tame Lampa shaped the global sound. And when it comes to jazz, Perth has built one of Australia's strongest jazz culture. We also have one of the strongest drum and bass scenes outside London, from the pendulum to massive live events. Perth is the drum and bass capital of Australia, and people will tell you that proudly. But look, I have gotten lost in Perth. The truth is that whole state WA has a different vibe, of different texture and its own charm. Western Australia has temperament that feels almost separate from the rest of the continent. On the other side of the globe, yes, I am talking about the antipode. The deep Atlantic near the Bermuda Triangle carries its long shadow of mystery and disappearance. As thought, the earth itself balanced silence on one side with the unanswered questions on the other. And then there is sheer physical reality of it. Western Australia is so immense that if it were ever separated and recognized as its own country, it would stand among the 10th largest nation on earth. A place where distance is not something to overcome quickly, but something that shapes how people live, think, and move, where stillness is not emptiness, but its own kind of geography. Western Australia is a place that shapes the way people think about distance, time, and landscapes. It is vast beyond easy comprehension, a state where nature still dominates the horizon and when the land itself carries the memory of ancient world. Even when WA was formally defined in 1829, its story had already been unfolding for the longer than any boundaries line could contain. By 1788, when Europeans first arrived on the wider continent, this western age was still part of the landscape that left vast, unfamiliar, and deeply ancient. Long before that, 4th June 1629, the wreck of Batavia near the Houtman Abrolhos marked one of the earliest European encounters with this coast. How could the world forget the story of Batavia? A mutiny so unprecedented, like nothing seen before or since. And 1616, Dirk Hartog stepped on Dirk Hartog Island, one of the first recognized European footprints on the shoreline. But even that feels recent. For 50,000 to 70,000 years, first people moved across Sahul, walking, trading, singing, carrying knowledge across the continent already full of meaning and memory. So WA is built on deep ancient truth. Remember this. WA is a place at every step nature reminds you, sea has been storing history for thousands of years across WA. Landscape changes with remarkable precision. Fine white silica along the coastline gradually gives way to golden earth before shifting again into the deep red of interior deserts. Each transition feels like turning another page into geological story of Australia itself. The ancient formation of the Archean Ilgan Craton are among the oldest surviving places on Earth's crust. Reminds that this land has existed for billions of years before modern borders or cities were imagined. And in some remote places, that sand quietly, literally sink beneath our feet. A small but unforgettable reminder that WA continues to surprise even seasonal travelers. Then there is a Pilbara, harsh, mineral-rich and extraordinary ancient region so rugged and exposed that visitors often compare it to the surface of Mars. Western Australia is not simply scenery, it's a geology. Isolation, scale, and history that all laid bare in the open landscape. Western Australia is a place where life has evolved quietly, stubbornly, or you can say differently. Separated by distance, shaped by the isolation, and over millions of years, the land has created species found nowhere else in the earth. More than 630 species of birds move through these skies. Over 10,000 varieties of plant life grow across this immense state. And even now, scientists continue discovering more species still unnamed, still waiting patiently in the shadows of the landscape. This is the reason WA is often called the wildflower state. Over 60% of WA's native plants are endemic, found only within this corner of the world. Travel north into Kimberley, and the ancient baobab tree stands like the silent guardian of the landscape. Head southwards, towering Mari and Jara forest being to dominate the horizon. Closer to the southern coast, and the elegant Tuart appears, and you will find WA peppermint at the coastline. And then there is the eucalyptus trees everywhere. Different shapes, different scents, different colors of barks age through. The entire state is breathing through them. In between, WA is home to the highest number of native eucalyptus species anywhere in the world, and sometimes standing among those towering white trunk trees, surrounded by silence and light, it feels as though ancient ancestors are still standing there beside you and watching quietly through the landscape. But then, only a few steps later, a balga, yes, the grass tree appears. Dark, fierce, scared, impossibly old, and suddenly the land seems to whisper back, "You speak of ancestors? But our lineage reaches far beyond memory itself." Some of the species traces their origin back to the age of dinosaurs. It is the same feeling that emerges in the ancient domes of the Bungal Bungal range. Yes, landscapes so old, so weathered and enduring that they existed long before dinosaurs ever walked on the earth. There is also something extraordinary about the scale of Western Australia, not only in landscape but beneath them as well. Hidden beneath this vast and ancient ground lies an astonishing share of Australia's mineral wealth. Nearly 60% of nation's known mineral resources are found here in WA alone. And from that red earth comes an industry powerful enough to shape economies far beyond Australia's shore. Most remarkably of all is iron ore. Western Australia produces roughly a third of world's supply, and so we have to accept in WA, the ground is never just a ground. Across Western Australia, development has never followed a neat or straight path. It moves slowly here, almost like the land itself is deciding the pace. And while the world outside has built its progress layer by layer, WA has quietly supplied much of its material that makes progress possible. More than 50 elements of the modern periodic table have, in one way or another, have been formed this ground. Look into the ancient rock released through time, pressure, and efforts. Today's global race for rare earth mineral is not new to WA. It's simply the world's catching up to what this land has for a very long time. But every moment forward has left something behind, and so here in WA as well. Towns built on promise, on discovery, on the hope of what lay beneath the earth, and slowly emptied by time. More than 600 ghost towns now sit across WA. Quiet reminders of the industries, families, and future that once filled these spaces with the sound. Yet, even in that silence, there is something enduring. A pattern of people arriving, building, risking, and moving on, leaving behind traces of the courage and ambition in the dust. One of those places is Gwalia, once alive with the miners and movements, now largely still. A town that carries echoes of war, migration, and unexpected connections to figures who would go on the shape leadership far beyond Australia. Yes, a man who worked here, derived strength, confidence, and spirit, and went back home. He became the 31st President of United States, Herbert Hoover. He mined here, and this land changed him, his fortune. Yes, a land or a soil of a WA has something miraculous in it that changes you gradually. It is a place shaped by the transformation, from settlement to silence, from industry to memory, and perhaps that is what defines WA most clearly. A place where beginning and the ending sit side by side, where stories do not disappear, they simply change form. From ghost ship to ghost towns, the silence is never empty. Across WA, nature does not simply present itself as landscape. It reveals itself as progress, memory, and time made visible. There are places where the earth seems to bend the rules of expectation. A horizon waterfall that moves downwards but sideways through the tidal force. Rock formation like nature's window where stone has been carved into a frame that looks out across deep geological time. In moments like these, WA feels less like a point on a map, it more like living archives on the earth itself. A place where ocean appears to run sideways, where rocks fold like frozen waves, and where life in some of its earliest forms still echoes through the landscape at Shark Bay. It is one of the most significant recognition of the point for understanding the origin of life. Within the ancient Western Shield, tiny crystal of zircon that more than 4.3 billion years old preserves chemical memories of the planet's first crust, formed when the Earth itself was still young, unstable, and forming its identity not far from there at Mababar. The stromatolites, dating back around 3.5 billion years, record something even more remarkable. The quiet persistence of early life, building layer by layer, slowly transforming the atmosphere of the planet itself. Together, these formations, often one of the most continuous geological narratives on Earth, from planetary formation to the emergence of life. And yet, alongside this scientific story, there is another way of understanding the same land in the cultural memory of Aboriginal people. Science and the story are not separated, they coexist. The Waigal, the rainbow serpent of Noongar tradition, is said to have shaped rivers, carved the land, and guided the flow of life across country in Western Australia. In this understanding, country is not something owned or used, it is something that holds you. You do not own country, country owns you. And somewhere between the geology and story, between zircon and serpent, WA becomes something larger than explanation. And at this point, a place where both ways of knowing feels more moment, equally true. Across Western Australia, country is never silent. It is always speaking, always remembering, always connect life in one continuous thread. From the sharp alertness of the willy wagtail to the steady presence of the kangaroo to the intelligence and adaptability of dingo, each creature carries its own knowledge of place, its own way of belonging, and beneath them all runs something deeper, the old dreaming lines of turtle dreaming moving through water and time. The presence of scared waggle and shaping rivers and the guiding flow across country. The long journey of the whale brothers moving through ocean corridors older than memory itself. Nothing here exists in isolation. Everything is part of something larger, land, sea, sky, and story woven together. In the way, WA is not just a region of animal and landscapes. It is a life system of relationships where every being is connected and every moment carries meaning. A single story still unfolding. Australia's outback isn't just big, it's a world of its own. WA, where the desert meets sea. And yes, WA is known for having very tough, strong, hardworking people. The harsh environment, the outback lifestyle, the mining area and long distance, the physical challenges from the rugged bush culture to the vibrant city. WA is where traditional values, new lifestyles and dreams of the sea change all meet at one vast horizon. True blue to its core, WA stand with steady pride and unshakable spirit. Red dust breathes beneath endless skies. Spinifex whispers, coast come stands like quiet witnesses. Nature speaks in flies, fires, and stars, roaming every soul who truly govern this land. It's a raw harmony where survival, silence, and beauty exist side by side. In the legends of Australian bushrangers, the East has Nat Kelly, fires, defiant and gorge in conflict. But here in WA, we tell the tale of Mundi Joy, the smiling escape artist of the West. His wit, resilience, and unbreakable spirit captures imagination for generations. He reflects the free spirit soul WA itself. And yet, the people of WA are as unique as our famous furry animal, the quokkas. You never know what adventure they will take on next. Blocks here built a 4,500 kilometers fence just to kept out rabbits. And then, on the strength of sheer cleverness, three little girls walk along that fence for 9 weeks straight, covering over 2,000 kilometers just to get home, and they did it. In last, I would like to say, as proud followers of the western pillar of the Pasari line, as people who have fallen in love with this game played across the vast red earth and endless horizon of Western Australia, you will find us at the footy shouting, "Go Eagle, go!" or "Go Dockers, go!" But beneath every rivalry, every scarf, every club colors, our heart still breathes to the same rhythm that whole Australia has. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi.